Greetings viewers, welcome to the channel Jinxed Judgment. In my previous video, we didn't particularly review anything since it was the first video. So this one is going to be about our first review. For this video, we will review Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends classic series. Thomas and Friends is a British children's television series that aired for 24 seasons and 584 episodes from 9th October 1984 to 20th January 2020. Based on the railway series books by the Reverend Wilbert Awdry and his son Christopher, the series was developed for television by Britt Alcott. The series follows the adventures of Thomas, an anthropomorphized blue steam locomotive on the fictional Northwestern Railway on the island of Soto, with his friend Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, Percy, Toby, and others who are engines of the Fat Controller, aka Sir Topperman. Now, as I said, the series is very long. It has 24 seasons, and if I review them all together, we'd be here for a very short time. No longer than 8 hours, I guess. Luckily though, the series underwent many changes throughout, which is why most fans categorize it into 6 eras. Namely the classic series, hit era, middle era, Big World Big Adventures era, and AEG. The classic series includes the first 7 seasons of the show. These seasons were filmed using real-life Gauge 1 models of the characters and had no voice acting. Till season 4, the series mostly had episodes directly based on stories from the railway series. Season 5 onwards, due to the show's popularity, producers decided to continue by writing their own stories similar to the original. Season 5 was a success, and it became even more preferred than some of the original seasons. However, the producer Britt Alcott left due to the failure of the Thomas movie Thomas and the Magic Railroad. After season 5, most of the show's earnings were spent on the movie, but it flopped. I'll give further details in my review of that film. Now let's first look at the good things about the era. The animation in the earlier seasons was perfect, but the comedic reliefs and charming setups made the series truly memorable. The faces of the characters were cute and funny, although some were jarring. The plots were sometimes like Gordon and the famous engine, better late than ever, Donald's Duck, etc. The music was absolutely fantastic, and the portrayals were good. I did talk about portrayals before in my previous video and highlighted their importance, so I'll talk about them again too. As compared to other train cartoons, the series was very down to earth. The engines were anthropomorphic, but that was all. They worked, they had jobs, passengers, stations, schedules, mainlines, branch lines, harbors, etc. There was a proper controller too. Personally, I think Thomas's realism is the thing that made it first gain popularity. It is unique. With that, I think we've covered all the good things. Now the bad thing. The absolute worst thing about this era was language. Yes, language. Not all of the words were bad, but some were. In the season 1 episode, Gordon takes a dip. Henry calls Gordon fatface.
Hello, fatface, whistled Henry.
That is wrong. What's not wrong and completely right is to subscribe to this channel. Gordon did previously bully Henry, but that doesn't give Henry license to be so rude. Especially since this particular episode was a fan favorite, people overlooked language. These types of abusive words can encourage kids to use them on bullies or bullies to use on kids. This creates chaos and mostly promotes conflict. In several episodes, the word appearing on screen was said. In the episode Better Late Than Ever, Thomas says,
Oh dear, my system is out of order. No one understands my case. You don't know what I suffer, moaned Henry. Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too fat, you need exercise.
Now that is abusive once more. And another bad thing was that the comic embarrassment sound effect played right after. That encourages kids even more. The language improved in later seasons of the classic series like season 5, but that did not repay for the mistakes earlier. The other problem was gender imbalance. In season 1, there wasn't a single female engine, they were just minor characters. Bridget had, who had 1 line. Lady Jane had, who had 3 or so lines. Mrs. Kindly, Annie, and Clarabelle, who hardly ever spoke. Luckily, however, season 3 introduced Mavis and season 2 introduced Daisy, 2 female diesel engines. Even so, that wasn't enough compared to the vast number of male characters. Here's another problem. Voices. The Thomas and Friends classic series and The Hit Her were both filmed using models and had a narrator. This made the series seem slightly cheap. It's not that there were too many limitations. Lots of stuff. The narrators were not perfect. Ringo Starr, first narrator of the UK dub, did not give the characters too much energy. The voice sounded lazy and there was no tone. Every character sounded the same. He slightly improved in season 2.
Whistles and burst, safety valves, accidents? Asked Percy instantly. No, indeed. High spirits might happen to any engine. But on jam...
But only just. First US dub narrator, George Carlin, was excellent. The characters sounded similar but the tone and accents were great.
The tunnel, and he was very cross. I'm a plain blunt engine. I speak as I find. Tunnels should be tunnels and not rabbit holes. This railway is no good at all. Don't be silly, snapped his driver. This tunnel is quite big enough for engines who don't rock and roll. Far into...
After season 4, Ringo Starr and George Carlin left the show and were replaced by others. Michael Angelis took over the UK dub while Alec Baldwin took over the US dub. Michael Angelis certainly had tone, but too much. Listen to this. Doesn't this seem high-pitched and slightly irritating?
I don't think so, Emily moaned. Bash buffers and a big monster. Sounds miserable to me.
Then there was Alec Baldwin, who was 60-40. His voices were Mrs. Kindly, Cranky, Salty, Scarlowy, Rusty, Duncan, Peter, Sam, Henry, Percy, Gordon, Will Waystock, and local passengers were really good. But his voices for Thomas, Edward, James, Toby, Sir Topham Hatt, and a few other characters sounded too similar. And in season 6, as I said, Britt Alcroft left and the show took a turn. The faces of the models were ugly, really ugly and dark, and the camera quality of models looked cheap. In season 7, Alec Baldwin left to be replaced by Michael Brent. Michael Brandon's voices were too high-pitched, irritating, loud, and unsuitable except for just one character he voiced, Hector the Coldcraft. The stories in season 7 also became slightly boring and pointed towards a slightly younger audience. They weren't very charming and didn't capture the image correctly.
But there was one excellent thing about season 7. Emily, the first female main character, the first female steam engine, the first female tender engine, the first tender engine to prefer small engines, the third character to promote gender balance.